My name's Nate. I'm 26. And 3 weeks ago, I saw something on a wedding video that made me question whether my mom killed my dad. It sounds dramatic, I know, but I need you to understand. I didn't grow up thinking my mom was dangerous. Controlling? Yes. Cold? Sure. But not dangerous. She was the kind of woman who cared about appearances like they were oxygen. Hair always perfect, voice calm and polite, even when she was gutting you with her words. When I was younger, I thought she was just strict. Now, I think she might be something else entirely. Let me take you back to the moment this all started, Leah's wedding. Leah is my cousin. She and I were close growing up, practically siblings. We used to joke that we'd walk each other down the aisle if no one else would. So when she asked me to be part of her wedding party, I said yes without hesitation. It was a beautiful ceremony. Outdoor venue, rustic theme, a string quartet that played Taylor Swift instrumentals, very on brand for her. My mom showed up in a pearl-colored dress that probably cost more than my car, smiling like a politician the whole time. She gave this long, over-the-top toast about family legacy and honoring tradition. The kind of speech that sounds normal until you realize half the family doesn't speak to her anymore. Anyway, the day after the wedding, I stopped by the venue to help the videographer organize footage. He's a friend of mine and offered to give me raw clips to make a fun blooper reel for Leah. We were scrubbing through drone footage and guest reactions when something weird caught my eye. It was just after the bouquet toss. You can see people laughing, some kid face-planting in the background. And then, in the corner of the screen, there's my mom. She's standing behind Leah's purse, looking around casually. Then she reaches into her own clutch, pulls something out, and slides it into Leah's purse. Quick. Smooth. Too smooth. I paused it. Rewound. Watched it again. She definitely put something in there. The videographer looked over my shoulder and chuckled. What is she doing? Stealing breath mints. I laughed it off too. But inside, something turned over. Why would my mom go through the bride's purse during the reception? I tried to shake it. Told myself maybe it was a card. Or a gift. Something sentimental. But that night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I kept seeing her hands move, that sideways glance, the way she immediately walked away afterward. It didn't sit right. So I brought it up. Not accusingly, just in passing. We were in the kitchen. She was rinsing out wine glasses from the rehearsal dinner set. I asked, "Hey, what did you put in Leah's purse at the wedding?" She didn't respond right away. She froze with her hand on the faucet. Then she turned the water off, wiped her hands, and walked to the hallway. She didn't say a word. I followed her, a little confused, maybe a little nervous. "Mom," I called after her. She walked into her bedroom and shut the door. I went to knock, but before I could, she locked it. That's when her voice came through the door. Calm. Chillingly calm. "What happened to your father wasn't an accident. And neither will this be." My legs felt numb. I stood there like an idiot, trying to understand what I'd just heard. My father died 8 years ago. Car accident. Or so I thought. She didn't say it in anger. She didn't sound emotional. It was like she was confirming something I'd never even dared to suspect. I didn't knock again. I just backed away. That night, I couldn't sleep. I couldn't think straight. And the next morning, I started looking for the key to that locked drawer in her room. The one I always wondered about as a kid. Because if she wasn't bluffing, if she was serious, then that drawer might hold more than old letters. After what she said behind that locked door, I couldn't just let it go. I needed to know what she meant. If it was just some twisted metaphor or, God forbid, a confession. I waited until she went out for her weekly church brunch. Like clockwork, she leaves the house at 10:15 and doesn't come back until noon. I timed it perfectly. I even took a photo of the driveway to make sure her car was really gone. I'd never gone through her room before. It felt wrong at first, invading her space like that. But I pushed that guilt down and headed straight for the vanity in the corner. Second drawer on the left. Always locked. Always off limits. When I was younger, I asked once what was in there. She told me, private things. Nothing you need to worry about. My dad had just passed when I asked. I remember because I cried after, thinking I'd upset her. I thought she was grieving. Now I wonder if she was hiding something else entirely. The key was nowhere in sight. But I remembered something my dad taught me when I was 12. He once showed me how to open a lock with a bent hairpin, just for fun. He said, "If you're ever in trouble, remember, most locks just want to be understood." It took me a while, but the drawer gave in with a soft click. Inside, everything smelled like old paper. Neatly stacked envelopes. Some tied with twine, others shoved loosely into folders. There were receipts from over a decade ago, safety deposit box keys taped to the inside, and, at the very back, a black and white photo of my dad's wrecked car. I froze. I recognized the model right away. He had a forest green Toyota Camry. The hood in the photo was crumpled like paper, the front end completely obliterated. The windshield was gone. On the back of the photo, scribbled in jagged black ink, was one sentence. He knew. It felt like someone punched the air out of my lungs. Next to the photo was a file of insurance documents. All of them were postmarked within 3 weeks of the accident. His life insurance policy had been altered 2 months prior, naming my mom as the sole beneficiary, with a payout of $350,000. Another envelope held the payout check stub. And then, tucked deep behind all that, was a letter addressed to Nathan. My name. It was sealed, but the envelope was worn and soft at the corners, like someone had read it over and over before deciding not to send it. I didn't open it. Not yet. My hands were shaking too much. Instead, I stuffed everything into my backpack. If she came home early, I needed an excuse to leave. She didn't. I walked back to my car, drove to the edge of town, and parked in a Walmart lot. Sat there with the AIC running and just stared at that letter in my hands. I finally opened it. The handwriting was my dad's. Neat, a little tilted, like always. Nate, if you're reading this, then I wasn't fast enough. Or smart enough. I thought I had more time. I never wanted to put this burden on you. But your mother, she's not who she pretends to be. She changed after the inheritance. Cold. Calculated. She started forging things, slow at first. Then faster. She knew I planned to leave. She said if I ever left, I'd never see you again. If I'm gone, just know, I didn't leave you willingly. I tried to protect you. Be careful who you trust, even if she shares your blood. I read it 3 times. Then I drove to the old office where my dad used to work, just to see if anyone was still there. That's when I remembered Mark, his business partner, and I had this sinking feeling that he knew more than anyone else. I hadn't seen Mark in almost 10 years. He was Dad's old business partner, co-owned a small contracting firm with him back when things were good. I remember he always wore baseball caps and chewed sunflower seeds like it was a nervous habit. After Dad died, Mark vanished. No visits. No calls. No nothing. I didn't blame him. Back then, I just assumed grief had torn things apart. Now, I had other ideas. I found him through a Facebook group for local tradesmen. His name popped up in a comment thread about roofing jobs. Same profile picture as I remembered, him in front of a camper van, middle of nowhere. I sent him a message. Hi Mark. It's Nate, John's son. I think I need to talk to you about what happened back then. He replied 5 minutes later. Meet me at Joe's Cafe. Sunday, 11 sharp. Don't bring your mom. That last part sent chills down my spine. I showed up early. Sat at a booth in the back, heart thudding like I'd done something wrong. Mark walked in at 11:02. He looked older, grayer, heavier, but the same worn hat sat low over his eyes. When he saw me, he didn't smile. He just said, I always wondered if you'd come looking. We made awkward small talk until the waitress took our orders. Then I pulled out the photo of my dad's car and laid it on the table. His eyes went hard, focused. Then he looked up and said, She never told you, did she? I shook my head. He leaned back, cracked his knuckles, and said, Your dad was trying to protect you. That's why he stayed as long as he did. He told me everything. About how they'd been planning to dissolve the business, quietly. Dad had suspected my mom was manipulating bank accounts, shifting funds. He'd asked Mark to help him set up a separate savings account and a trust in my name. Not hers. Not joint. Just mine. Dad's plan was to leave, take me with him, and start over. He'd even signed a lease on a rental house in another part of town. It was supposed to be a clean break. Mark had helped him draw up the paperwork. Everything was in motion. But then the trust was canceled. Revoked by surviving spouse. The same week, Dad died. Mark said, Your dad didn't crash because he was reckless. He was scared. He called me that night. Said she found out. Said he needed to move faster. He never made it to the rental house. His body was found just outside the city limits. No skid marks. No tire blowouts. Just a straight shot into a drainage ditch. I sat there, staring at the salt shaker, trying to process what I'd just heard. Mark looked at me and said, I wanted to go to the police. But your mom, she came to my house. Told me if I said anything, she'd drag my name through the mud. Said she had records that could ruin me. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I asked. Because, he said, I thought maybe she'd leave you alone. After that meeting, I couldn't go home. I drove around for hours. Every memory of my childhood felt poisoned. The family dinners. The quiet holidays. Her soft voice at bedtime. All of it. And now, she was trying to sabotage Leah? The pieces didn't fit until I remembered the way Mom talked to Leah when she got engaged. Always smiling. Always polite. But always adding little jabs. She's marrying up, Mom would say, like it was a bad thing. She's going to find herself in over her head. She needs to remember where she comes from. I had a sickening thought. If Mom went that far to keep Dad from escaping, what would she do to Leah if she saw her as a threat to the family image? The moment I got back to my apartment, I called Leah. I didn't even think about the time. It was late. Almost midnight. But she picked up on the second ring, and I could hear it in her voice. She'd been crying. Leah, it's me. I need to ask you something. Did anything weird happen during your honeymoon? She went quiet. I could hear her swallow through the phone. Then she said, "You saw the video, didn't you? That stopped me cold." "You knew?" "I didn't at first," she said. "But I know now." She told me everything. 3 days after the wedding, Leah and her new husband, Ryan, flew out to Mexico for their honeymoon. First class. Resort on the beach. Everything should have been perfect. Until they got flagged at customs. Security pulled them aside and asked to search their luggage. They were polite about it, just a routine check. Nothing seemed out of place until they opened Leah's purse. That's where they found it. A small pill bottle. White label. Scratched up. But when the officers looked closer, they could still make out the name, Leah Hastings. Her full legal name. Inside the bottle, 30 oxycodone pills. Leah was stunned. Said she'd never seen it before. Said it had to be a mistake. But the authorities weren't laughing. She was held for almost 5 hours. They took statements, made her sign forms, and threatened to contact local police until Ryan's family lawyer stepped in to sort things out. Eventually, they were let go. But not before Leah's name got flagged in the system. She was warned that any subsequent infractions could result in an international travel ban. "I felt like a criminal," she said. "On my honeymoon. Nate, someone planted that bottle. Someone who knew I'd be searched. There was no doubt in my mind. It was my mom. She'd put the pills in Leah's purse at the wedding. I saw it with my own eyes. I just hadn't known what they were. She wants to ruin you," I said. "She's done this before." I told Leah about my dad. About the letter. The insurance payout. The canceled trust. Everything. By the end of the call, she was shaking. She said, "I thought she just didn't like me. I didn't know she hated me." I told her to get as far away from my mom as she could. Then I called my cousin, Leah's brother, Tyler, and made him swear not to let mom near Leah's apartment, the house, or anywhere near her and Ryan. He didn't ask questions. He just said, "You think she's dangerous, don't you?" I said, "I think we've all been pretending she's something she's not." After that call, I couldn't sleep again. I sat at my kitchen table and stared at the envelope from the drawer, the one with the check stub. It was real. $350,000. Issued 20 days after my father's death. Cleared in her name. I started wondering how much of our life had been paid for with that money. The house. Her car. The fancy family vacations. I used to think she was just good with finances. Turns out, she was just good at keeping secrets. But the worst part wasn't the past. It was the look in her eyes when I confronted her. The cold stillness. The calculation. Like she wasn't finished yet. That's when I knew. If I didn't stop her, she'd do it again. And next time, it might not just be pills in a purse. It took me 3 days to build the folder. I scanned the photo of Dad's wrecked car. I made copies of the insurance documents, the trust cancellation papers, the payout check, the letter. I printed out stills from the wedding footage, frame by frame, showing my mother slipping the pill bottle into Leah's purse. And I highlighted her exact hand motion, time-stamped. I organized everything into a black folder with red tabs and tucked it under my arm like a bomb. Because that's what it was. I drove back to her house, the one I grew up in. The walls felt closer than I remembered. Every photo on the hallway walls suddenly looked staged, like they'd been curated for display, not memory. She was in the kitchen, humming, flipping through a cookbook. She looked up, smiled like nothing was wrong, and said, "You're just in time. I'm making that stew you love." I dropped the folder on the table between us. She looked at it, then back at me. "What's this?" "Everything," I said. "Everything you thought I'd never find." She didn't open it right away, just brushed invisible crumbs from her sleeve and said, "You've been digging." I saw the video. I talked to Leah, to Mark. I know about the trust, the forged documents, the insurance payout, and the pills. She raised an eyebrow. "Pills? You planted drugs in her purse. You tried to get your own niece arrested on her honeymoon." That was when she opened the folder. She flipped through the pages slowly, methodically, not a flicker of panic, not even a flinch. When she got to the letter from Dad, she paused, tapped her nail against the paper. Then she looked up and said, calm, almost amused, "Men always think dying makes them martyrs. Your father tried to leave me, so I finished what he started. It hit me like a freight train. No denial, no gaslighting, no excuses." She admitted it, out loud, and she meant every word. She reached for her tea, took a sip, and added, "He thought he was smarter than me. Thought he could disappear with you and play house somewhere off-grid. But he was slow, and when men are slow, they break." My fists clenched under the table. She looked at me like I was a child again, like she still owned the room. "You always thought your father was this saint," she said. "He wasn't. He was weak, and I don't allow weakness in this family." I stood. My voice didn't rise. I didn't yell. I just said, "You're not going to hurt anyone else. Not Leah. Not me. It's over." She leaned back, smiling faintly. "Oh, Nathan," she said. "You don't have the stomach for this." "I don't need a stomach," I said. "I have the truth." I left the house and drove straight to the precinct. At the police station, I handed over everything. The photos, the documents, the letter. I explained everything, from the suspicious accident to the planted pills. At first, the detective didn't say much, just took notes and kept flipping through the evidence like he didn't want to believe it. Then he stopped on the still shots from the wedding. "That's your mother?" he asked. "Yeah." "And the bride found these pills in her purse?" "After getting flagged at customs. They were traced back to her name. She almost got detained for drug trafficking." He nodded slowly, tapping the edge of the photo against his clipboard. "We'll open a formal investigation," he said. And just like that, the story stopped being a family secret and started becoming a criminal case. The days that followed were a blur of phone calls, interviews, and awkward family silence. I didn't tell anyone at first, not even Leah. I wanted the police to have space to do their work. I wanted her confession to carry weight without getting buried under family politics. The detective handling the case said there was enough to reopen my father's file, but they'd need more to press full charges. The death was ruled an accident at the time. No autopsy, no toxicology, just a scene report and a rushed burial. But the pill planting? That was different. That was fresh. And it was provable. Within a week, they had warrants for the house. They took Mom's laptop, 3 of her old phones, and a safety deposit box I didn't even know existed. She was brought in for questioning on a Thursday. I wasn't there, but the detective told me she barely blinked. Didn't deny a thing. She just asked for her lawyer and sat there like someone who already had a plan in place. The family exploded. Tyler called me screaming, wanting to know why I hadn't told him earlier. Leah's mom demanded to know what kind of mental illness my mother was hiding. A few of the older relatives tried to defend her. She's always been strict, but she's not a criminal. They hadn't seen the footage. I sent them the clip. One by one, they stopped calling. Leah and Ryan moved in with her brother for a while. They didn't feel safe staying in their apartment, said they kept getting unmarked mail, phone calls with no one on the line. I didn't tell them about the surveillance footage that showed my mom's car parked a few blocks from their building. She was never arrested, not officially, but she was detained, and questioned, and investigated, and she knew the walls were closing in. Then, just like that, she disappeared, packed a suitcase, left a note on the counter that said, "Family is nothing without control," and vanished. The cops think she had offshore accounts. She had access to cash, had probably been preparing for this kind of escape for years. It's been 4 months. No sightings. No bank activity. Just gone. Sometimes I think I see her face in a crowd, or catch her perfume in an elevator. But it's never her. It's just memory playing tricks. As for me, I burned the letter. Not because I wanted to forget, but because I wanted to release it. I've spent enough time holding on to secrets that weren't mine to carry. The house is up for sale. I cleared out the attic last week and found a second lockbox in the floorboards. Inside were photos of me and my dad. Just us. Camping trips. School plays. Sunday pancakes. No mom in any of them. I kept those. Because that was real. That was the part of my childhood I want to remember. I don't know if she'll ever be brought to justice. Maybe she'll resurface someday. Maybe she'll try to worm her way back into someone's life with that same smooth smile and polished voice. But I'm not scared of her anymore. I've looked under every floorboard. Opened every drawer. I know exactly who she is. And I know what silence costs. Because silence is what killed my dad. Silence is what almost destroyed Leah. And silence is what kept our family looking like a portrait while it rotted from the inside out. But not anymore. Now the truth is out. Now the legacy ends with me. And that's the story. If you're still here, that means you're one of us. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button. I drop new chaos every single day. And trust me, tomorrow's story, it's even worse than this one.